Hey everybody, thanks for watching Retro Tech Toys. I got Link here with me again. I'm starting to think this might be Link's channel and not mine. I don't know. What do you guys think? He says yes. Today we're going to talk about the iMac G4. It is actually nicknamed the Flower Pot iMac, or at least that's what I call it. I've heard a couple of other people call it that as well. We're going to see what it can handle. Can it do YouTube? Can it do the internet? What are some basic things that it could still do in 2020? And is it a viable computer to use as like a daily driver? Now, it's a PowerPC processor. It's not an Intel processor, so it's going to be pretty limited in the things that it can accomplish. And you're going to have to kind of set your expectations possibly a little bit lower than you might be thinking right now. And just kind of figure out realistically, what do you want to do with this thing in 2020? But we're going to find out exactly what it can handle, and that's coming up right now. So let's get started. Alright, we've got one of my favorite Apple products. This is the iMac G4, also known, as I've said before, as the Flower Pot Mac. It's got a PowerPC processor and it runs up to OS X 10.4 Tiger. It's a pretty sleek system. Forgive my keyboard, which is missing a button and it's a little yellow. But, you know, it's got that acrylic design, and all the guts are contained down in the little bowl. And it's got a really nice LCD screen. And I say nice multiple times because I can't stress enough how much I love the display on this Mac. It's one of my favorite Apple displays. But anyway, I don't have an airport card yet. I just ordered one, so I've got this USB dongle, which will work in OS X 10.4. Now, I had to go through a lot of red tape to get this USB dongle installed. I actually had to install drivers from a CD, which is really odd for a Mac, but that's okay. Anyway, I got it installed and I got the internet working and I'm ready to go here. As you can see, I've got LibreOffice kind of open there on the desktop. But let's check out and see what we've got back here. There's the dongle flashing green, the Wi-Fi dongle, and we've got some FireWire ports, some headphone and microphone jacks, an Ethernet and a modem, and you've got USB ports and all sorts of things back there. So let's go ahead and see what we can do in terms of usability that would make this a daily driver. Go ahead and close this up, and there's our little dock. You know, you can see the magnification works really well on it. There are my two hard drive partitions that I have, one for OS 10 and one for OS 9. One thing that really surprised me is that I was actually able to do software updates through the Apple update service. I was pretty shocked about that. But we're going to go ahead and scan for that, and I forgot that my Wi-Fi dongle wasn't cut on, so let's quit out of this and we will go turn that on really quick. I have to have a special wireless utility that came with the dongle to use it, but no worries. I'll go ahead and get that enabled. And once we do that, we'll check and see if there are some available updates that we can download for Tiger, as crazy as that sounds. Alright, we've got the internet connected. And we'll go back and check some of that out. Let's look at the software update and see what happens. Alright, checking. It takes a little while to check. Pretty much everything you do on this G4 iMac takes a little while. Predominantly because of the slow hard drive, and of course you've got a 700 megahertz CPU, along with this particular model having 512 megabytes of RAM, and being maxed out on the OS, which is kind of accurate. You can actually install Leopard, but there's a trick you have to do to make the processor think that it's running faster than 700 megahertz, and we're just not going to mess with that. Anyway, here are some updates. I already did some previous updates, but we've got a Java update and a Safari update. Those aren't really a big deal because we're not going to be using them a lot. So we'll quit out of that and I'll update that later. But it's just good for everyone to know that the update service does work. And that will update you to 10.4.11 for your operating system. So to get us started, let's go ahead and we'll open up 10.4 Fox. And I have 7450, or there are two versions of 10.4 Fox that work on a G4, and I've got the 7450. Anyway, here's Link. He wanted to say hello. But here we go. We've got the internet loaded up now. And it loads up to kind of like a 10.4 Fox search screen, which I'm pretty sure that's Google. So we'll go ahead and just go to Google and see how that loads up. I'm actually pretty impressed with 10.4 Fox. It's based on Firefox. And these people also, I believe, did ClassZilla, which is a Firefox-based browser that works in OS 9. Anyway, this loaded up really well. Let's see if we can at least Google YouTube. We're not going to go to YouTube. I tried to do it earlier, and it will load the home page, and it'll load a channel, and it'll load up a video, but it does not play YouTube videos at all. I'm attributing that to the hard drive and the 512 megabytes of RAM. You upgrade this thing to a gig, which is possible, and if you're brave enough, maybe install a better hard drive, and it might run standard definition YouTube. But for now, let's just assume stock. This thing does not run YouTube. It will watch standard definition videos that you have saved to the hard drive, though. So in terms of a daily driver, you're not going to be using YouTube. You're going to be doing basic internet surfing. In terms of Facebook, it will barely load Facebook. So you can go to Facebook, but it's going to crawl. As you can see right now, I just tried to click the Wikipedia page for YouTube, and it gave us the nice little beach ball of death there for a second. But it does eventually load YouTube, the Wikipedia page for it at least, and you can kind of scroll down and look at everything, and that works. So it'll browse things like Wikipedia, it'll do a limited version of the browser version of Gmail, some other basic websites. You know, you can probably load Google Images just fine. It took a little while to load that little donation screen there. But, you know, I'm just impressed that 10.4 Fox works as well as it does. Let's go to an easier website where you can get a lot of cool software that will run on this Mac. It's called the Macintosh Repository. It's one of my favorite sites. I actually use it quite often. And it shouldn't take that long to load that up. There we go. We're on the Macintosh Repository. And look at that. It says, wow, you're actually browsing this site on an old Mac. Macintosh Repository salutes you. SSL has been deactivated for you. Yikes. But that's pretty cool that it recognizes that you're at an old Mac and an old browser, because that's sort of, you know, what we want to do. So on the Macintosh Repository, you can pretty much go here and get word processors and games and operating systems. Yeah, there's that little message again. I like he's got the little classic all-in-one Mac there. It's so cute. You can get games for various systems, from like the Mac and, you know, from the Apple Lisa all the way up to, you know, the early Intel Macs. And it loads just fine. So, you know, basic web surfing is a yes. Basic email through the web version of Gmail, yes. Basic videos in standard definition, if you have them saved to the hard drive, they will play. So we're going to close out of 10.4 Fox, and make sure you actually go in and close everything. Don't leave it just running in the background, because we're very low on resources on this particular computer. So I'm going to go ahead and make sure LibreOffice is closed out from earlier and that we don't have a bunch of stuff open. And here we go. And now let's go back into LibreOffice just to see, can we use this thing as a word processor? Can we use it for spreadsheets? I think that's really important. If you're going to use a computer for a daily driver, especially if you write for a living or you do any kind of editing, that's going to be important. And I'll up front right now, I'll just say video editing and Photoshop it's probably going to be a no. I mean, because this thing won't even load YouTube. I don't see it loading Photoshop. I don't see it loading, Adobe Premiere or anything like that. I mean, anything like that. I mean, clearly it's not going to load Premiere, but even anything super basic, I don't even know that it would load like iMovie. Anyway, the word processor pulls up pretty quickly, and we got a nice spinning beach ball of death for a second, but they were all right. And it seems to type just fine without lag. I said, this is a text document. It seems to load well enough. So yeah, you can use this to edit text. You can use it for basic email. You can use it for web surfing, basic websites, maybe some Google image stuff. If you found a really, really old image editor on Macintosh repository, I would imagine that you could use it on here. But anything that you can do with a super basic photo editor, you're probably better off just doing that on another computer. So what about games? Can we play games on this? Well, the good news is, thanks to Macintosh repository, for example, you certainly can play games on it. No, it's not going to run Fortnite. No, it's not going to run Overwatch before anybody asks. But it will run the very first Fallout. It'll run a bunch of really cool games from this era. And I'll be back as soon as this is done.
You're here. Good. We've got a problem. A big one. The controller chip for our water purification system has given up the ghost. Can't make another one. The process is too complicated for a work.
So yeah, you can play basic video games, like I've said before. So if you want to do some retro gaming, you can do that. You can do some web surfing, all that sort of thing. Now there's something else that you can do with it too. You don't just have to be on OS 10. You can have a dual install of a classic OS, like I believe OS 7 will work, or System 7, all the way up to OS 9. I have OS 9.2 installed on here. What you want to do is, if you have that done, you split your hard drive into multiple partitions, and you install your regular OS on one, and you install the classic OS on the other partition. So you turn your computer off, and when you boot it, you hold down the Option key as soon as you hear the chime, and it'll give you the option to choose which hard disk you want to start from. And we're going to start from Mac OS 9.2 this time. I really like that mouse trail. That's fun. And the cool thing is as far as classic OS, usage, it runs the classic OSs just fine, as you imagine it would, because OS 9 will run on a Power Macintosh, so it's certainly going to run on a G3 or a G4, or heck, of course, a G5. So you're not going to have any issues running a classic. And I actually really like Mac OS 9.2. I like System 7 as well. 8's pretty cool, but whatever. 7 and 9 are my two favorite classic OSs, sort of from that era. I think it looks really sleek. I think it looks, in some ways, I think it looks nicer than OS 10. But, that's just a preference thing. But as you can see, it runs classic OS without any kind of lag whatsoever. As soon as I get a legitimate airport card in this thing, which should happen in a couple of days here, I've got one on order. But as soon as I get that wireless card installed, I will take OS 9 for a spin, and I'll do a video on using a super classic OS, on a G3 or G4. But yeah, here are all the application folders, everything's good to go. OS 9.2 runs beautifully. As you can see, it's pretty late there. If you look at my clock, that's accurate time as of right now. As of time of filming, at least. So I'm going to get ready to wrap this up. And that's pretty much it for what we've got here. So, as far as recapping, one more time, web surfing, retro gaming, maybe some basic photo editing if you found an old program, but I don't recommend it. If you've got some videos saved to the hard drive, if you want to download some images, you can do all of that. You could probably run a blog on the thing if you wanted to blog with it. That would probably be okay. My particular website, actually, it's just sort of a static website that I have up that links to my YouTube videos. I actually programmed it in really old school HTML from the 90s, so this thing would run it just fine. But anyway, that's it. So we're going to go ahead and wrap up and shut this thing down. So Link, what do you think? Well, let's ask everybody. No, he said no. So can a G4 FlowerPot iMac withstand the challenges needed to surf the internet and do some pretty basic things that you would want to do with a computer in 2020? Somewhat, yes. But realistically, you're probably going to want something a little bit newer. Maybe one of the older Intel Macs would be best for you. If you'd like to have this on your desk, looking pretty, turned on, playing classic games, and some of the other stuff that we saw that it did pretty successfully, then it's going to be the computer for you. The good news is that you can get these for pretty cheap. I got this one for about $60. They range for about $40 to $100 depending on where you go. I suggest Facebook Marketplace if you'd like one. Anyway, I've got some more videos coming up. We're going to do one about some older Intel Macs. And as always, thank you for watching Retro Tech Toys. And you want to say goodbye, Link? Bye-bye.